How's it going, my friend? Welcome to another video. And in today's video, I want to talk about this idea of an enemy. When it comes to this idea of an enemy, me personally, I'm not at a place where I can say that I have any enemies in my life. And if anything, I would say that there are no enemies. Before I even kind of give you the big spoiler of like why that's the case, let me talk about the bigger picture. So you and I are energy. And so as energy, as a spirit, as a soul, we're all moving through life in this planet, in this school, and we're all experiencing life lessons for our own spiritual evolution. That applies for every single individual here on this planet. Every single individual you see, whether on the internet, whether you see on your phone or in person, everybody's going through their experiences. And we all share this commonality of coming here to learn and grow as a soul. This planet, again, I want to emphasize, is like a giant school. And so with that being said, me, when I think of the word enemy, I mean, honestly, the last thing I want to do is to put it on people because I understand that they have their own experience. People are human. They're a soul. They have wants, desires, fears, insecurities, challenges, things like that, strengths. Let's highlight both the positives and the negatives. We all have that. I have that. And I think it's important to have that awareness when I'm engaging with people because so often in our society, we get so judgmental about things like good and bad. And although good and bad, the barometer or a gauge can be a good thing, it's used negatively for the most part. And people are judging one another left and right, and all that does, it just creates like a little wedge between one another, us increasing more that sense of loneliness, disconnecting ourselves from other people, and ultimately disconnecting ourselves from ourselves. And so I think it's a very important thing that to have this mindset when you're engaging with people, especially those that are giving you challenges, because here's the thing, hurt people hurt people. Think about it for a moment. Can you think about a time when you saw someone who was genuinely joyful and felt good, felt the need to harm or say something disrespectful to another person when they've been genuinely joyful and grateful and all the things? Have you? You've been a child at some point. You don't just plop into this world and you're already an adult. So meaning you still have that purity within yourself. And when I mean the purity, I'm talking about you as the soul. And that's a very very important thing to have an awareness of because often as we move through life and as we go through life in our first 7 years and going through school, going through all sorts of programming, conditioning, we lose touch of our childlike part. We lose touch of our inner child. And as a result, that starts to create disharmony, dis-ease, suffering, emotions, like all those things that compel people to do horrific things. I've seen some things out there. I've seen, news and all that stuff. And it's terrible, the stuff that happens. But then when I look at all that, for me at least, I always have the forefront like, okay, this sucks. It's not good. There's this lack of respect. It's not good. But still recognizing that person is going through some stuff. And again, I'm mentioning all this is in my efforts to want to humanize individual, not make them as some kind of robot or this and that. Because like I said, our society is so obsessed with good versus evil, us versus them, especially in politics. It's like a sport. If I keep giving into that energy or I keep playing into us versus them, I'm losing touch of the reality that am one with all things. You are one with all things. Everyone around you is one with all things, whether they're aware of it or not. So in all the stuff that's happening in life, and like I said, there are a lot of crazy things happening out there in this world. It's understandable. It's so easy to judge. But if there's anything I've learned is that my eyes can deceive me. But I really have come to understand and experience the reality of oneness. And it's something that I can only say I would want for you to experience yourself at some point. And I think the first step would be to open yourself up to that possibility. Open yourself up to an experience of really feeling one with all things. Because that right there, when you get into that space of feeling that oneness with everyone, whether it's like with friends, family, loved ones, but especially if you can feel it with people that are giving you challenges, that are making you feel tense and all the things, and you can still connect with that sense of oneness. To me, in my opinion, that's a lot of power. That's a lot of tremendous power right there to be able to feel that in those situations. And I think it's a good direction to move towards to practice. When I look at spirituality, I look at it as it's like practicality, right? It's like making it practical. And that means having to work through my stuff, to my practices, taking it into situations that no matter what life throws at me, I'm going to work with this rather than fight it or resist it. So again, going back to the whole judging thing, good versus evil, me versus the world, us versus them, I'm resisting. I'm resisting the reality of life. And now when I say reality of life, I want to preface that this is my experience and my perspective, my opinion. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying whatever resonates with you, because we all look through life through our own reality. And so all this I'm sharing is what I believe is, getting into the understanding of the big picture of life, and whatever resonates with you, you're an intuitive person. You're not dumb. You know, you can sense, you have the intuitive sense, intuition when it comes to like relationships and our dynamics and how things kind of play out. As long as we keep getting into this is this, and we get so opinionated, we forget that we're humans. We forget that we're souls going through stuff. We've been through some stuff. The moment that gets tossed out the window, and then as we start putting our preferences over this, like, oh no, I don't like this, or likes and dislikes, it's creating that wedge. And I have to ask myself in that situation, if I were doing that, am I contributing to the solution or am I actually contributing to the pollution? And that's a very important thing to discern, to get to the real meat of really when we're talking about the enemy. The only true enemy I see in life is the one I see in the mirror. In other words, I can be my own worst enemy or I can be my own best friend. And the difference is, what do I do to address my own needs and wants? Because all of us, and if you're watching this, you too, my friend, you have wants and needs. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame. It's you have that as a soul. Just like how our physical body, we have these needs to use the restroom, to eat, to sleep. So too does the soul need it to live, to radiate life. Because otherwise, it just becomes a situation where if I neglect my needs and wants, I become miserable. I start suffering. I start feeling a lack of fulfillment. Life happens whether you and I like it or not. And so we have autonomy. We can choose yes or no. I want the best out of life. I'll settle for the crap and all the worst things in life, suffering, all of which, of course, is optional. I don't know if you've got the memo on that, but suffering is optional here on this planet, especially when it comes to living spiritually and living a purpose. It's all optional. So, me being my own enemy is basically I'm working against myself, meaning the concepts and ideas, the attitude that I have about myself, the world around me, other people, life in general are working against me. So, I think it's important that if you find yourself being your own worst enemy, a good place to start is developing some sort of reflective meditative practice, taking the time to reflect, to go inward, but remembering to, in this whole process, to work with myself with that sense of compassion, because I don't know about you, I am my own worst critic. And I can start saying all these nasty things, but we're not going to get there. But nevertheless, am I working with me, myself, being patient and kind to myself? Because in that instance, I am being my own best friend. But if I'm criticizing myself, shaming myself, or just lacking my own wants and needs and all the things, then I'm gonna be my own worst enemy. And then give it time, I'm gonna start looking to include other people, because they say misery loves company. And then that's where we see the situation of people doing all these horrific things to other people. It's like symptoms that can just go all the way back, sourced all the way back to me and myself, meaning you and yourself, that person and themselves, me and myself. We have a relationship with ourselves and we have to take care of that. We have to acknowledge it. And we have to take just a little bit of time each day, simply check in with ourselves, Or even if you know somebody that needs some help, encourage them, help them out. We have other people in our lives to support one another. Tap into that as well too. Reach out, like I said, because there's always to want to separate myself from connecting with the people. That I can give into a lot of excuses, and I know I have to not share or talk to the people, friends and families, to me when I'm going through stuff. But thankfully, I've developed good support system that's been able to help me move along as well. And so I would say lean into your, friends or anybody that you have when it comes to this idea of an enemy. I think is an illusion, because there really is only one team, and that's team spirit. And we can choose in or choose out, and that's really our choice. But there's always going to be a place there for you and me. And when people become aware and acknowledge that, slowly move towards that, that's when they really, in my opinion, start to really do for themselves and really transform their lives. And so these are just my thoughts on this. And like I said, anybody that I consider an enemy at the end of the day, usually in my experience, the people that have given me trouble that I could easily judge as enemies, I've learned a lot from. They've taught me a lot about myself. I'll leave it there at the end of this video. Feel free to drop a comment or anything that stood out to you, anything that resonated with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, on this matter, this idea of enemies or good versus bad or us versus them. Because honestly, I think that's all toxic. And at the end of the day, we're all one with all things. That's the reality. Anything else is just an illusion, excuses, etc. So this has been another video. I'm Alvin, signing out. Take care, my friend.